It's a great segue to one of the last topics we're going to talk about today, which is around business in general without innovation or with innovation. We've talked heavily about MSPs and what MSPs should be focusing on, and around innovation and customer experience. We briefly touched on earlier around the business itself and the customer, the consumer, the end user. Now, I love the point you just made then, Jamie, around if I put my hat on back on when I was a tech. So just so you know, I was a tech. I was the guy that was originally in the workshop, physically building computers back in the day before vendors now do it for you, distributors do it for you. So physically building computers that I was literally on site. So we had no RMM tools or remote access or internet connection wasn't good enough to do even use TeamViewer back then. Um, Physically on site, traveling around. I used to drive 1,000 k's a week, every single customer, and physically solve their problems.
Wow.
Um, and that's just what we did, right? At one stage we had 19 guys out on the road driving around every single day solving problems. You'd remember this back in the day.
Yeah, well, that's how
Now,
it was. Yep. There's no remote. There's
but
no help desk.
no, it wasn't even really a topic of conversation. It was like just had started about like Indian, Philippines help desk. They're getting them to do back end stuff. That just started to come in. But the key conversation is around I guess the innovation for business. What I loved about that doing that role at such a young age is I learnt what businesses want, and that's why we end up developing Crofty and developing Crofty from an innovation standpoint. Is because they didn't want, yeah, okay, they always foundationally want their problem solved, but what they always wanted was a better way of working, a better way of doing something. They wanted their Excel spreadsheet to be able to communicate with everything else in the system and push data and pull data and have graphs and obviously you can do all that 365 now with Power BI and etc. And it's out of the box when it wasn't back then. But like those topic of conversations around what do business want from innovation. So I'm keen to dive into this now. I know both of us are now focused on the MSP front, and we're talking to MSPs on a daily basis. But I'm keen to dive into around what does business look like without innovation in the coming years, and will businesses in general survive because they have for hundreds of years. They're still plugging along. They're still doing what they've always done. What does the next generation of business look like in your opinion?
Well, look, as I said before, I think how the business model is changing. It's already changing. COVID's probably sped this up a wee bit in terms of, do you need an office? How do we collaborate if we're not in an office? What tools are available? I mean, Teams and Microsoft sort of getting their act together was kind of timely for them, in the way that they've been able to bring, email files and folders, chat, collaboration, all that sort of stuff into the one ecosystem. I think that really has shuttled them forward, and Slack obviously led the way prior to that, and kept them honest and gave them the blueprint of what they need to do. And so I
Well,
think there's a
honestly, they should have actually just sold to them. To be honest,
probably, yeah,
they really missed the boat then.
yeah, exactly. So the tools that are out. In terms of business needs, I think it's there's the structural first thing, because each business model is different. That's can't I don't think technology can save a bad business model in that sense, but it can support a business and it can help you achieve what you need to achieve. And so you've got the base infrastructure of how you run, and that's changing. Like, it's becoming more remote, and distributed workforces are becoming the norm. COVID's, as I say, accelerated all of that. And what are the implications? What are the implications on BYOD? What are the implications on security? And I think the big one, though, is collaboration. It's like, how do we work together as teams if we never see each other that much? And I'm not sure that, I think it'll be a hybrid. The answer is always a hybrid. Like, it's never, I'm only going to work at home or I'm only going to be in the office. Like, there's always somewhere in the middle. Like, and bigger enterprises have always done that. So,
I'll question that one, man. Have you not seen the topics coming out of the States recently? They're saying work
yeah,
from
go for it.
home is the only option for your business now. Like some of these the tech giants, the big corporations, even the up and coming
It's a good
startups.
point. They are saying that. When I made that comment, I was thinking of over the last 10 years, I think of large banks and large companies. They
Yeah,
have hot desking and these
yeah.
activity-based working sort of stuff. That's absolutely been there. What these tech guys are saying of just working from home, well, let's see who's actually saying that, because you talked about broad business, and when you say broad business, I think
Yeah,
about all the businesses eNerd supports and their
yeah,
professional services and manufacturing,
traditional.
and like they're not all tech businesses, and tech
That's right.
businesses have shitloads of tech people that don't want to see people anyway. Like, well,
Yeah.
they do. Don't get me wrong. Of course, you guys do. But the point is that you're actually not unhappy to just plod along and do dev work and do other stuff like that in your home. Whereas other like if you're in a call center or a help desk as an MSP, that's horrible. If you can't lean over and just say, dude, how do you solve that thing again? Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. You know, collaboration in that sense is interesting. So
Mm.
even though those guys are saying that, I feel like that's an anomalistic to what most SMB businesses would be facing, and that is a combination of in-office, remote sort of working. So I think
Agree.
just life in general and technology advancements are shaping this for the future, and those that won't survive or struggle will always be the ones that are a bit slow to adopt different methodologies and practice. It'll have implications on churn of staff, attracting staff, and but I also always challenge anybody to look at their own business and still put on that innovation hat. It's not just about being an MSP. I love talking about it because it's in the MSP space, because that's what we do. But it's also extremely relevant to look at your, like, I'll give you an example. Accounting firms, they love to just charge fee-based stuff, right? And you just get these whopping big fees, especially when your business gets bigger and bigger. The fees are quite high, and that's cool. But I mean, how many of them have actually gone to more of an annuity monthly model? Like, and sort of at least given it as an option, and sort of a way of doing sort of an annuity style to streamline cash flow of their own bills for their customers. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, look at your own
Mhm.
model. Why does it have to be that way? Could it be done
Mhm.
something different? And I know there are some accounting firms, for example, I'm aware of, that do it that way. And a lot of accounting firms have done the hybrid model of offshoring. I think most professional services businesses are going to have a hybrid offshore model, especially out of Australia. Maybe not US, Australia that way, because wages here are very high and there's a lot of repetitive work, and that combination between offshoring and more high level consultative work being local is quite um, relevant. And I think it's actually the way you can be sustainable to cope with the rising costs, etc. So yeah, look, I think innovation should be thought about all the time in whatever business you are, whether it be the way you work, whether it be the systems you use, whether it be your actual business model and how you bill and charge and do things. The ones that will, oh, I mean, what does Darwin say? It's not the strongest or fastest that survives; it's the most adaptable.
Mhm.
So maybe that's the key
Yeah.
word: innovation
Uh,
slash adaptation,
Adaption,
pivoting.
yeah, and adoption. Yeah, the pivot word got used a bit too much throughout that COVID journey. I love where your mindset's going, because I think this relates to both MSPs and traditional businesses. Innovation and customer experience and customer service is not the top. It's not on top of their head, right? It's not what they're thinking every day. They're thinking about cash flow problems. They're thinking about putting out those fires and making sure the customer's happy and delivering that service or product or whatever it is. They don't think about innovation or customer experience to what we're thinking, right? And I think if you use the accounting anomaly, and sorry for the accountants out there who decide to jump on and watch this and we're not listening to us take the piss of the accounting world, um, delivering a monthly business option, so a monthly business model, delivering or paying your monthly bills rather than a one-off fee or a consulting fee or an end of financial year fee. Um, to me, that's not even innovation, to be honest, Jamie. That's just what you should do because that's what your customer wants. Like, I don't think the industry itself has changed. Like, if I go, cool, we're paying BDO, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 grand a year, whatever it is. What do they do for us? I got no idea. They're doing accounting services. Like, as a customer, wouldn't I want to know, well, what value are they adding to my business? They sit behind the counter, they do all that, they're doing the stuff behind the scenes. And obviously from a legislation perspective, we have to do it, right? We absolutely have to do it. But are they adding any extra value? Have they changed their business model? And do they have that customer experience value adding? And I'm not picking on video here. This is all accounting firms. The top six around the world, all the way down to your mums and dads accounting services. Like, what innovation are they actually bringing to the table? So I think if we look at that, or the legal space, or the manufacturing, or whatever it might be, from a customer's perspective, so the customer of the customer, what does innovation or customer experience look to them? And I think that's what all businesses need to really dive into. It's like, let's talk to the customer, ask what they would love from us. And you know what? Sometimes, like the tech industry, they don't know what they want. So you just got to think differently, build something, change the way you're delivering it, and offer it and go, cool, that's how you stand out in the market.
Well, firstly, you've got to speak to your customer rather than making an assumption from your perspective. I think that's what often a lot of technical people will do is go, they won't like that. It's like, no, you don't like that, but non-technical people freaking love it, right? Like, and so that's the key. And I would challenge, probably bringing it back to the MSP thing for a sec, is really just start thinking from customer backward rather than you forward. Because if you only think
Yeah,
from your perspective of the world as it relates to the way in which you deliver services, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot a wee bit, because you are not them, and
yeah,
they are the ones that pay the bills, and the experience they get is super important. So, yeah, look, I think in general, the question you have to ask yourself watching this is, because you may not care. It's like, whatever, I'll just keep plodding along, and that's totally fine. But and accounting firms, law firms, whatever, like they don't. All of our industries will be here forever and a day, and the reason why an MSP will always be here, because some people go, that industry is going to die. I'm like, no way, no way is that going to die. Why? Because non-technical people like me could not be asked dealing with all that other stuff. Get someone else that knows how to do it, and that will never change over time. And that is, in principle, what an accounting firm is they're a technical firm, law firms, technical capability that you just don't have, and you'll always outsource to it. Like, so that's
yeah,
never going to go away. The question you've got to ask yourself is, are you happy with where you're at in terms of growth and time? Would it be nice to kind of grow it a little bit bigger so you don't have to be in the day to day? And if the answer is, well, yeah, I wouldn't mind growing a little bit more, then you do have to start thinking about these things, because you can plod along and do what you're doing, and that's totally cool. And if you're happy, even better. It's the whole point of life is just be happy. But if you feel like you need to grow a little bit, that's the point. And every industry has that. And you'll have,
yeah,
if you had a big row of all the different firms in an industry, millions, thousands, whatever, that there'll be people just jostling up and down the list based on size or growth and all that sort of stuff. So you can kind of be like, meh, like just not moving, or you could be sort of slowly growing up the tree a little bit. And just to paint the picture, when my brother and I we were about maybe 14, 15 stuff, 16 stuff, and we were still heavily in it. Like, I was obviously in it more on the sales and the account management side, like that, and actually, ordering products from distributors, all that, everything related to that was what I did. And we looked at each other and we went, fuck, this type of business isn't, like, you're not going to make squillions, are you? Like, yeah, this is a small business at that point. So we basically said to ourselves, well, look, if we're not going to be gajillionaires out of it, why don't we at least get our time back? And so we actually focused on just building a business big enough so we could take a step back. And I personally achieved that 10 years ago when I got a GM of sales. And it felt fantastic to just kind of step back and see your business as an asset rather than a job, right?
mm-hmm.
And so to achieve all of those sort of things, you absolutely have to be working on it, and you have to be really looking at all the different aspects of your business from an innovation, customer experience perspective. Because remember, we're customer experience businesses. That's what we are. So of course you got to focus on that at some point. And you'll find, and I do recommend reading the book by Jim Collins, Good to Great. It's a pretty standard one that
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't read, you should read it. But there's a concept in there called the flywheel effect. And interestingly, it's this concept of that every single improvement you do in a business kind of pushes the flywheel around. So think of Arnold Schwarzenegger pushing that mill around slowly, slowly, and then he starts building up speed. Conan the Barbarian, I'm talking about, and so the more you can do that, the better, to get that momentum going. The thing that thwarts people is just they'll put some stuff in, then, oh shit, there's a fire over there and a fire over there, fire over there. Then they'll get back to the wheel and it's lost its momentum. That's all it is. It's just, it's
Mm-hmm.
the focus on it. So not
No,
sure if
yeah,
that
I agree.
answered it. question? Or
No, it doesn't. Or we're talking about like lessons learned, right? So if we dive into around in the MSP industry, we heavily focus on innovation and automation and customer experience and what's going to change in the next 3 to 5 years. That lesson learned that you like that story you just told is absolutely crucial. That needs to be told more because um, the majority of the MSPs that I talk to on a daily basis, I've been running their company for 20 years. They've got 20 staff, and it's just like stayed about that for a very long time. They're still in the day to day, every single day, doing what they're doing. I think until you make a decision, okay, if you're happy with to be a lifestyle business, totally fine. But you need to also have a family, focus on your health and fitness. Ideally, like you need to have something else in your life rather than working 24/7. And if you can either draw a line in the sand and go, you know what, myself and my brother, we're going to give ourselves 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and we're going to reduce 1 day a week, or we're going to not have to, work after hours or work on weekends, whatever that decision that you make, because then all your thinking goes towards that. So everything you
correct,
do goes, how
correct.
do we remove ourselves from the business? And I think that topic of conversation isn't talked about enough. We go, well, if we just win more customers, everything will be solved. If we just get more money in the door, everything will be solved. It doesn't work like that. I think you really need to
No.
put a focus around.
Yeah, it's a good point. And vision is everything. And the irony, well, I don't know if it's irony, but it could be. Need to learn the dictionary. But ultimately, um, as the business got bigger to support um, the fact we had a management team, and my brother and I didn't really have to be in the day to day at that point. You get bigger, and there is more money. Like you do make more money because it's the business is bigger and the numbers are a bit bigger, and it is what it is. Like it's just the law of bigger numbers. So a lot of MSPs will say, bigger is harder. I don't know, man. I reckon if you get the right management team, it's actually so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean,
Well, they're smarter than you. They've got more experience than you. They have the more go. They're more focused. They're more passionate. They're not trying to do 20 million things at once. They're only doing one task. Like,
often it's only two roles away. So for most MSPs, I will say this just as a bit of an insight, is that inevitably you need someone sales and client services like account management and all that sort of stuff, which is what I always did. And then you need someone that was obviously going to manage the technical team, which my brother did, but then quickly handed it over. That one got handed over a lot faster. So those are the two pillars of most MSPs. If you have a GM of sales and advisory, so they'll do the roadmaps and all that, and a GM of technical operations, you're out.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
really only two people. You don't actually need a million people of what I'm talking about here. So it's fascinating, just so you know.
So,
You've
so just
obviously
from
got to be able to pay for them.
yeah, no, because they're what 150K, 200K Aussie. So if you're talking US, probably at least 100K as a starting point. Like they want decent amount of money, right? I'm asking a question. I haven't done this before, so I'm curious to know.
Yeah, well,
That's
they
about
do.
that.
They obviously do. But let's just look at the sales one for example. And it's something that I took me a while to get my head around. So it's not like I was naturally fast at this. If a salesperson should basically bring in new business, right? Like, so if they are, 100 plus K a year, then obviously just to cover their costs, because it's not about profit at the start, it's about freedom. So all
Hmm.
you need to do is get that person in that first year to sign up 10 grand a month of support deals. Well, our target's 40 grand a month after 12 months of selling. So not every month, but at the end of 12 months, we should have got 40 to 50 grand more of support deals. At our size, we need to do that. 40, right? So to me, signing up 10 is like whatever, right? Like you should be able to do it. Any MSP should be able to do that. So you do need to factor in churn a little bit, but ultimately that's where your head is at. And the other concept is so at the end of that year, if they've signed up enough support deals to cover their own wage, you're not out. Yes, you're not more
Yeah,
profitable, but you've got more time, and then you
yeah,
can kind of focus on that.
yeah.
So, but what actually happens is you do sell way more. Like and before I get into the example, when when you think of a salesperson, for example, a lot of people will look at the salary like that and go, "Fuck me, like that's a lot." But you don't need to worry about it because they're a salesperson. Because if they haven't hit any numbers by 3 to 6 months, they're gone anyway. So you're not
Hmm.
going to waste $100,000+. You're only going to spend whatever a third of that is, so 30 grand, to try and figure it out, right? Which, if you do your recruitment properly, I always recommend salespeople from the printing industry. They're amazing because they've been dealing hardcore with SMBs,
Mm.
and they like sort of the basis of networking, like they kind of get their head around it, so they're always good because they've got good discipline and so on. But and so the example for me was that we had stalled at the 3 million revenue mark for 3 years. That we hit it the first year and then hit it the next year. I went, oh, we didn't grow that much. And then I realized, oh, we're on track to hit it again. I got to do something different, right? And anyway, when we got him on board, yes, he was signing up a lot of new clients, but no more than we ordinarily did. But it meant I had freedom. But he did a way better job of going and seeing all of our customers and talking about their roadmaps, which therefore translated to a lot more procurement sales. So
Projects. Yeah.
in that first year, we went from 3 to 4 million. And you know why? Sales efficiency. Having conversations faster than you ordinarily would have. And that's all it is. Most MSPs drag out sales pipeline over a longer period of time. And if they just squeezed it up, that's actually growth. So yeah, we're
That's
actually not
interesting,
that.
eh?
Yeah.
Because us as business owners are usually ones that are doing sales. Even if we're the tech person, running the company, we're the salesperson, right? I could probably, all the, let's call it all the 60% of the MSPs that we speak to around the world, which is that 10 to 20 staff members. It's always the owner. That's the salesperson. If you're the owner and you're the salesperson, what are you doing in sales? 1 day a week, maybe 2 days maximum,
You're
because
resigning
all the
that
other
job and
fires.
function to a part-time job.
Yeah, because all your other time is going to putting out fires, working with your team, working with customers, doing account management. Like you're trying to do absolutely everything. It's just not possible. So I think you're right. I loved your mindset and thought process, and it obviously took a while to figure this out. Is factoring in the cost for that year two mark. So let's call it that the salesperson for the first year will earn 100K. You physically need to pay them 100K. Maybe a commission, let's call it 120K. By year two, that means the generation would already be 10K extra per month. So it's already covering their salary.
You do
But you're
have to
getting
think of it
that,
monthly like that. Yeah, that's the way to
yeah.
think about it, because now you're net neutral and it's like, sweet. But you'll never be net neutral if they're good, because they would have sold you a lot more procurement stuff anyway. Because look, most MSPs, I challenge them to do this. If you put all your 25, 50, 100 clients in an Excel spreadsheet down one column, and then you went through each one and went, what could we possibly sell them that they need? A couple of desktops, new switch, firewall, router, project to go to Office 365, whatever. Just guesstimate it. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a 10 grand pipeline for every client. Because remember, a couple of
Mm-hmm.
desktops, a couple of grand each, there's 4. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
so it's like there's probably 10 grand there. So if you've got 50 clients, there's a $500,000 pipeline. Most
Mm-hmm.
MSPs don't think of it that way, right?
Mm.
Because they're not sales focused. And it's not about being sales focused for the sake of it. These are things customers need you to do. That's that whole
Yep.
proactivity piece. Like they want you to
Mm-hmm.
help them with this stuff.
Yep.
So effectively, if you've got a 500 grand pipeline, the
Mm.
difference between an MSP like eNerds and the smaller ones is that they don't look at it that way. And then therefore they won't go out and have those conversations to try and get the 500K. So let's say both of us have the same sales success rate. So we only sell 300 grand of that 500 grand pipeline, because obviously you never sell all of it. The difference is that we would do that 300 grand in a year, and you would do that, not you personally, but other MSPs would do that 300 grand over 2 or 3 years, because you've been diddy
Yeah.
daddling and not gone out and seen the customers. So that's that anemic growth, because you just didn't have the conversation with them. And that's all it
Yeah.
is. Like
Mm-hmm.
just being efficient. So fascinating stuff. And at
I love
some
that. Love
point,
that topic.
and I do want to say this too, though, our model breeds conservatism around sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's annuity and you kind of feel safe and you don't have this
Yeah.
pressure to be starting from zero every month. I know I'm salesy, and I fell into that trap for years where I was like, we're growing and it's like whatever. And so that's the difference, where you still, at some point, you've got to be entrepreneurial. So think about the example I gave. had stalled revenue a couple of times, and I was debating hiring someone. I actually personally wasn't too concerned about the cost because we were a wee bit bigger, and so therefore it wasn't such a big drama. I was just struggling to get my head around whether we needed to do it or not, and whether or not I kind of saw it as a waste of money. Right. Because I'm like, well, I'm already doing that. But once I got my head around the fact that I'd resigned the sales function in the business to a part-time job, it made more sense conceptually. And then I had to actually get a little more entrepreneurial, take a little bit of risk. Like, we're so risk adverse in an annuity, very consistent business model that I was like, yes, there's no certainty on every move you make.
Yeah.
So it's a big decision to get that first salesperson. But I highly recommend, if you're over $1 million, 1.5, somewhere in that range, you probably should start looking at it, because you can just go leaps and bounds ahead of that, just purely because they're going to focus 40 hours a week on it. And that's
Yeah.
innovation in process. That's innovative thinking. It's
Hmm.
it's taking a little bit of risk and being entrepreneurial. But is it that much risk when you only really end up paying 3 or 6 months, depending on how long you decide that they're not good at it? It's not even that
Yeah.
much of a risk. So fascinating,
Yeah.
fascinating, isn't it?
I get this question all the time from MSPs wanting to start out, or just either just get started in the industry, or they've been in the industry for a long time, and they go, well, how did you grow your MSP to 20 plus staff? How did you do it within a couple of years? It's like, well, because I focused on sales, like literally nothing else in the business. Did we have our shit together, and did we have our service delivery and our automation innovation? No, we didn't. But we're able to grow because we focused. You put the focus on it, right? One thing, and this obviously I'm not focused on it now, and we're back down to 9 staff again now, and it's our R&D hub for Tribu. But one thing that we always found was we won business because our sales process was slick. The presentation, the proposal, the process we go through, it just was slick. And obviously this is before tools like the Datto e-commerce tool now. I think should help a lot of MSPs, and there's probably a few others out there, but like that didn't exist, right? So we had to be creative and think of our toes. And honestly, I just did it because I was sick of just repeating myself 20 million times a day. So I was like, I have to automate this process. It's got to be easier. But that won every customer over. Like I would have a 90% success rate compared to when we're going up against multiple other MSPs, because I had my proposals like I replied to the customer within a couple of hours. I was able to have a meeting with them within the same day or next day. Like it would go, well, how come you chose us? I always ask the question, why did you choose us over another company? Well, I emailed our existing IT company. I wanted to migrate to 365. I asked them 3 weeks ago. I still haven't heard from them.
Yeah.
Like,
So being slick in your sales presentation, it doesn't get spoken enough. I've actually been banging on about this for quite a few years, because I realize that most people don't spend time on the actual proposal. So most of the sales coaching is around lead generation, but not conversion. And in fact, I think it is still hard, whichever way you do it, to get lots of leads. It's why most MSPs are small. It's not that bloody easy to just get 50 people keen to swap IT providers. And it's good that it's that way, because that's why we don't have high churn. But it does make it a bit trickier. So therefore, conversion is super important, and working on your sales presentation, how you articulate, what is your playbook? Do you call them back straight away? What questions do you ask over the phone? What do you do to close the meeting? What's your call to action? How do you do your pricing and packaging? But how do you talk to them? Like, we don't talk. Most MSPs literally rock up and go, "This is what we do. This is the price."
mm-hmm,
Whereas we always talk about the Simon Sinek concept of sell the
mm-hmm,
why first, then the how, and
mm-hmm.
the what's like whatever. Like, they get the gist. You do all of that stuff. It's actually not beside the point, right? So I completely agree with what you're saying, and that definitely doesn't get spoken about enough. And I think that's the bit where a lot of MSPs really struggle to do the conversion. Like, they just do a real horrible job of presenting. And my example that I posted last year in like the Tech Tribe was that we won a $3,000 a month deal, and I mean, I'd like to say it was our presentation style, and I'm sure it made them sign on the dotted line very quickly. But they went to market to 10 MSPs in Sydney, 10. And after we'd already won the deal, he goes, "Look, to be honest, I went to 10, and one called me back same day, which is you, within an hour or whatever. One emailed back with some questions the next day, and the other 8 never got back to me." but the second one
Yeah.
never even bothered to go in. So we pretty much won it by default. So it's
Yeah.
not a great example on our on conversion in that sense. But because our proposal was awesome, and because it gave them confidence, they didn't feel like they needed to go to market to anyone else to
Mm-hmm.
get options, and you win the deal by default to some degree. So, and that's
Yeah.
that kind of
Absolutely.
non-sales mindset problem that's out there. But I'll say it again. These are all examples of innovation. It doesn't have to be tech. It can just be a process. Like a sales process and innovating around that is it's mission critical. Like it's crazy. Like we actually have a VCIO module in our platform now, and it's taken our innovation, brought it to the table, which is when you present recommendations, you've got to do it using a good, better, best format so that the customer understands, oh, okay, so I could just extend the warranty, or I could go to the cloud, or I could get a new server. Okay, which one? You recommend that? All right, what do I want to do? Rather than just giving them a yes or no proposition. It's like, it's a budget of this. It's like, what do you want to do? It's like, well, I don't know what I want to do. Like, you tell me what I should do. So, yeah. Anyway, I digress. But fascinating
So
debate.
in Invarosoft, there's a module that is a VCIO, or is it usually what eNodes?
In Invarosoft, sorry, yeah. So we
Okay,
brought
so
the
so
eNodes
this is a
IP.
sales perspective. No, I'm keen to dive into this. You're saying there's a VCIO module in your platform that allows MSPs to make the sales process a lot smoother.
Correct. So we basically most. Here's the. I'll try and do the 2-minute backstory on it. Is that we obviously realized, being a client portal, that should we do VCIO? Well, yeah, we should, because it is something that you're supposed to present to a customer. So it makes logical sense. It's in a client portal, so therefore, okay, let's add that to our suite of functionality. And um, and if we're going to do it, let's do it the way that eNodes does it. Because I looked at the way the market does it, and here's what I observed, and I shake my head perpetually at it. I personally think all the VCO tools out there are only focused on one half of the job. That half of the job, I'm sure they're doing a great job of it, but they've literally missed half the job. So on that basis, I would actually say they're all failing at helping you. And I have now empirical evidence to back up what I'm saying, because what a customer wants to know is, what did you find was wrong and what do you recommend? And what most of these VCO tools do is they do a very detailed job of explaining all the things they found. So it's all about the audit and showing your acumen around the audit. Huge reports explaining this that customers can't possibly digest. They're non-technical. Why would they care? They're being a lawyer. So it's a bit of a waste of energy, but they're good at it, and they're getting through all that info. But then when it comes time to actually present recommendations, I think 100% of these VCO tools, because I haven't seen any that don't do this, is they basically just have a budget line item. So if you're talking about UPS, they'll say budget $2,000, and that's the extent of it. That's the extent of what they talk about in terms of recommendations and how to get a customer to make a decision. So the net effect of when you do that is that the customer says, well, okay, is it $2,000? Like, are you going to do a quote, or are there like varying UPS levels? Do we need, like, what brands are there? Can we like look at APC versus Eaton? Like, what, which one, right? A budget item does not help a customer make a buying decision. It just doesn't. And the empirical evidence that I'm talking about is, now that this is a relatively new functionality in our platform, is that I'm right, because what most of these tools, by the nature of their design, is doing is forcing a customer to chase you down for a quote. And then you end up quoting them. So you now have one meeting to talk about your like your roadmap, your advisory, your audit. And then you end up having to have a second meeting because you didn't present it in a way that they could buy it. Now, even if you'd rocked up with a quote, it's pretty much yes or no. Are you in or you're out? It's pretty hard for a customer to get a $20,000 quote and go, oh, I don't know, let me think about it. I bet you $1,000,000 anyone watching this is like, yeah. Clients always do that. Of course they're going to do that. Nobody wants to spend $20,000. They need to kind of be led to water like, a horse. So what we built was a whole module called a solution builder 10 years ago. We'd been doing it in a Word document so that the customer could see, oh, here we go, lead the dog to water, so that the customer you could sort of show them the good, better, best options. What it does is that it doesn't play your hand on price. It shows you're actually on their side, actually shows your technical acumen, because it shows you've got different options they can consider. And then they end up building a solution themselves based on what you've presented. And at the end, you go, great, well, Okay, you could have spent 10, 20 or 40 grand. You've selected, say, 22 grand. I'm now going to go away and do a quote on that. This is all on one page in our awesome portal. I'm going to do a quote on that. What's standing in the way of going ahead? So in the one meeting, you've actually got them to make a buying decision pretty much, right? This is not a quoting tool. These prices are like 90% accurate. And then boom, you go and do the quote. And we've found that that's how you speed up the sales cycle. So it's all very well to get your 500 grand pipeline that I was talking about. And it's all very well to go out there and be efficient with the presentation, but you also need to at least get them G'd up so they're kind of almost there at making that buying decision. Because what most MSPs are experiencing is presentation, another meeting to do quote, and then delay on decision, because basically they've just been presenting a yes or no proposition. Fascinating stuff. I could go on about that forever.
Yeah.
But,
No,
does that
I
make
think
sense?
it's no, it absolutely makes sense, and I think the key point around everything you just discussed around what your platform's offering is amazing from that perspective. But also think the missed conversation is around the customer and the time. They're booking in an hour meeting, typically an hour meeting, to sit down with
Correct.
you, and they've got that dedicated hour. And by the end of that meeting, they don't want to think about it again. So I think if you're being able to deliver everything that they can then discuss in that meeting, tick off, sign, and move on, that's what the
Correct.
business owner wants.
I think
That's what they
that's a
want.
better way of explaining it. And maybe you should have explained our platform in the 30 seconds that you just did it. But that is the gist of it. It's like you've only got their mind share for a short period of time. And if as soon as it has to be spread over a few meetings, their interest level wanes, and therefore your ability and your conversion percentage will wane accordingly. Like
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Because then there's like back and forth, and 3 weeks later, they still don't have time to meet with you again. You're like, it's like,
Yep.
no, if I got signed off on the spot, then we don't have to meet again. We're done. I'll let you know once we deliver it. It's a no
Or even
brainer.
because they don't often sign off on the spot, but they have fundamentally made a buying decision because they are the ones that you go through line by line, and they just pick the one they want. So they're
Yeah.
emotionally invested, and they've literally picked it themselves. You've just been the
Yeah.
facilitator of the conversation, whereas the
Yeah.
alternative approach is, here's my quote, do you want it? And so where's the engagement been? They're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, like,
Yeah.
so it's
or you have that visa. I mean, you do a roadmap, and then you go, cool. I think we need this. All right, let me go back to my team. Let me dive into this. Let me put a bit of a quote together. I'll send you
correct.
a quote, and then you can sign off on it. And then it's like crickets. Typically, it's like you got to chase them and follow up and book another meeting. Yeah, 100% agree. The other key point around using both our platforms from a sales perspective is the Teams integration. So you've got the team. You're just going live with your Teams integration for your entire portal. We've also got a Teams integration for the customer that can submit tickets, they can follow up on the engineers, everything can be done by Microsoft Teams. Now it's definitely not a fully fledged portal like yours. Yours is epically amazing compared to our platform. But what we've seen from the customer facing teams integration from an MSP standpoint, they use it in their sales process. Hey, would you love to never have to email us again? Absolutely. Well, guess what? As we're selling our MSP service to you, you can use our customer focused Teams module, and you can submit tickets. You can follow up. If your tickets are not being responded to quick enough, you can literally hit the follow up button, and it will chase our engineers to get back to you quicker. Like it's a no
Brilliant.
brainer in a sales conversation. And I think that's where we aren't doing it enough, and I'm not sure if you're going down this direction, but I think we could use those conversations to go, well, you should, as an MSP, buy our tool just to improve your sales process. It does it for
Oh, look,
you.
in all honesty, yeah, I mean, we're probably undercharging it. Most of the VCO tools, for example, charge the same amount as our entire platform. And I just
Mm,
shake my head and go, wow, like we're delivering
yeah,
15x more, plus our VCO is
yeah,
better anyway. And so, yeah, it's interesting. And the ROI on that is, mate, you sell an extra 100 grand in the year at whatever margin that
yeah.
is, like,
Pays for itself. Yeah.
whatever, it's free. So, yeah.
This has been absolutely amazing, man. I think we could literally go on for hours. It's been an hour and a half, which is pretty epic.
We probably should, yeah, let these people go. If anyone stayed the journey with us.
I appreciate this, man. I think we'll have to kick off this again. Maybe we'll book this in for early next year as our platforms develop, as we keep talking to MSPs all around the world. And if you haven't already realized, we're still figuring out what we're doing. We're still figuring out what innovation automation and customer experience we can offer to the MSP industry. We want to know. We literally want to know what you guys want. We want to hear from you. We want to understand what your customers are saying, what your techs are saying, what you'd love to see from an innovation and customer experience standpoint. At the end of the day, what our job is to deliver an amazing tool set, an amazing opportunity, amazing operational customer service experience to your customer. For the next 3 to 5 years, we're going on this massive innovation journey, and that's why Jamie and I have connected so well over the last 6 8 months. It's only been a very short period of time. We've known each other in the industry for a long time, but it's only been a very short period of time this relationship's been building. Because we're both doing it. We're both in the grind, and we're both trying to solve a really well needed problem in the industry.
That's a good point. Both of our teams are spending a lot of time and effort of their lives to make your MSPs more awesome and to deliver superior experiences and superior productivity. Like, there's a lot of time being spent by some really special people to make all of this happen, and that can't be understated enough in the sense of the passion that teams put in place that believe in a problem and really want to help others solve that. So the output of that is obviously the tools that you get, but probably worth that massive tip of the hat to those teams just slogging away to kind of improve and deliver awesomeness. So yeah, good point.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll keep you posted on the next one. Would love to get your comments, feedback, everything based on these hot topics of conversation. Appreciate it. Cheers.
See you guys.